everybody. Welcome back to this. I'm your host, Shauna Griffiths. And today's Real Talk is with a real leader who I have been friends with now for years. I don't actually even know how many. We actually met in a pitch. So I'm telling you folks, you never know where you're going to meet someone who becomes your good friend. So Jennifer Matthews, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. That's a good question. How many years? It's between 10 and 15.
I know,
might be
right?
closer to 15.
It might, but
we're not that old, but it might be closer to that.
It's so true. But so folks, Jennifer is taking time out of her busy work schedule. She is the vice president of brand strategy for FanDuel, one of the hottest brands, one of the hottest industries. So I have secretly been trying to get her on for a while, and so she was finally able to make it happen. So we're going to jump into so many things here today, but just to set the foundation for the audience, Jen, I think people have an idea of what FanDuel is, or they have an idea of the betting landscape, but help people, in your words, especially as the head of brand strategy, tell us what is FanDuel and, who are you for and who are you not for as a brand?
Well, we are America's #1 sports book. Do you like that brand message? But it's true. We are. I mean, we have the most market share. No, we just had our earnings come out. It's across the board. We have sportsbook. We have DFS. We have free to play. We have skills games. We have casino. We have retail sportsbook. So it really is actually for everyone. What's really nice about sports betting, which I think had a lot of negative connotations, right? Thinking about offshore betting, illegal betting for bookies all these years, everyone was like, oh, it's degenerates and all this. If you really get into the weeds of it, it's almost like you're almost a mathematician, right? Because you're following lines, you're figuring things out, you're attaching your bank account essentially to a platform. So like, it's not willy-nilly of like, oh, we're just going to do this, this, this. Like people are putting a lot of thought and they understand the game of sport. And then they understand the game of sports betting. And it's fascinating. And it's what I think the best part, honestly, is like, it's actually increases engagement in a viewing of sports, right? Because how many times are you like, oh, it's, third quarter and my team is up by 10, like I'll just go to bed. Well, if you have money on that and you have money on, a player getting a certain amount of points, like you're going to stay till the end. So I think it's really nice marriage between sports viewership and, making engagement and fun. Actually, I'm sure we'll get into it a little bit, but like we kind of have I shouldn't say tagline, but kind of our campaign is make every moment more, because that's the whole thing, right? Is that like sports betting is allowing you to make your moments more exciting or more fun, or, sometimes it is more sad if you lose money, but it's still like, it's enhancing what you're currently doing in those moments. And it's been a really exciting space to get to know. I've now been in it for, I think it's 3 years. Oh gosh. But FanDuel, I was at PointsBet prior, but yeah, it's totally different from, I think, before sports betting was legal, when it just felt scary. And I think that's what's really nice about what we've done is our product is just so easy to use that if you are just trying to dabble in it and understand, like there's not the pressure of, I don't know what this means. Like we have education videos, right? We try and bring people in to feel, oh, okay, there's some risk adverse here, right? Like we have cash out options. We have different things for different types of bettors. Now there's your VIPs, right? Your people betting lots and lots of money all day long. You have people who are switching. You have people from one book to the next. You have people who have multiple books, right? Multiple wallets, as we call it. And you have people that are just loyal to us. So I think it works for everyone. Just you kind of find what works for you, And I think that's sports betting, I think, as a whole, FanDuel specifically, but it's not, like I said, I think for a long time, it's a lot of people have had this negative connotation. And when you really think about it, it's really adding engagement into your everyday life of sports,
Yeah, I love the way you talk about it that way, because I mean, you and I have both been in sport and entertainment for a long time. So we've been through that movement of how the industry has worked so hard to try to make it more engaging. And that was everything from make it more entertainment focused, make it more accessible, create fan experiences, social media, all of these things, even the in-game text to vote and all this stuff.
Right.
So I love the way you talk about it that way. And I had never actually thought about it that way. So it's so much like, as fans, it is a way to get closer to the game, but also, like, to your point, it really does keep people on the edge of their seats and tuned in if they're watching on streaming or whatever the mode of watching is.
True. Very true.
That's awesome. So your role is VP of brand strategy. So tell us, like, what's a day in the life? Like, what does that actually mean for you? You don't know.
I don't know. So I'll give you a little bit more background of kind of who my team is. So yes, I oversee brand strategy team. I also oversee our social content team. So all of the handles throughout all of FanDuel come through me across all the platforms. We also have our creative operations team. So every piece of creative that comes out of our company has to go through my team to work with our creative team to make sure it's out. And I'm talking millions of pieces of creative a year. I mean, it's intense. I mean, NFL alone, we have thousands. So like, just think about that, and then I have product marketing. So product marketing who works across our sports platform. So our sportsbook, DFS, racing, free to play, and our skills game all kind of roll into me. So, day in a life. It's a good question.
You keep it all moving.
I have a lot of meetings. But yeah, it's essentially making sure our brand is true throughout everything we're doing, like even from the social standpoint, right? We work to make sure our brand voice is coming through everything we're doing, right? We are all about, like I said, we're America's #1 sportsbook. And why are we America's #1, right? Because we have this ease of use. We're a trusted brand. We have the best app. And, people want to trust a brand they're attaching their money to. So that's really important to us. And we stay really close to that. Same with our product marketing. We look at what product features are really important for people and how we're going to market to them, right? Our parlay, our SGP product, which is our same game parlay product, is great. I mean, it's the best. And like, this is something that people are adopting more and more and more, and understanding that it's little in, big reward, which is so fun for people too. You'll see, like, we do a lot on social. We post people's, bet slips and what they're winning, and it's fun. It just adds to that excitement. So it's a lot of that strategy of thinking, like, how are we going to continue to grow this brand? How we, even in TV commercials, right? So my team is responsible for all of our TV commercials that you see. So the production is working with our creative team or an agency, but it's working on the briefs all the way through. What is this script being on set and shooting and editing and all that stuff. But that's a first touch point. A lot of people are interacting with our brand. The other thing to think about is with sports betting, and specifically, is it's not live in every state. It's not legal in every state. So every time a new state becomes legal, it's essentially like another brand launch. So it's a very different business model where we're constantly like reinventing ourselves for every state, because you have to get, once it's legal in the state, it's educating people. Oh my God, it's coming. And then who are you going to bet with, right? And what's the best offer, and who's the one you want, right? So it's getting in front of people and then building out that strategy too for states. So it's a lot, but at the end of the day, it's making sure that we're staying true to who we are and continually staying as America's #1 sportsbook.
Yeah. As you were talking about it, I was just thinking, this platform is so much about like authentic leadership. And, so as you're saying that, like, clearly a main part, you're leading teams of people, you're leading the #1 brand in the space on a daily basis as it's continuing to transform. And so, I'm curious, like, your thoughts on what are some of the most important things for you to keep in mind as a leader every day with your people, with the brand? And I know you've touched on some of it, but I'm just, does anything come to mind as you're like, oh, these are my kind of guiding principles almost?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I mean, let's think about this, right? I started in this role during COVID. So I onboarded remotely. being a leader of that many people remotely, it's not easy, right? Especially when you're trying to figure out, it's like a Hollywood Squares box all day long. Of like, okay, I see a name. What do they do? Trying to look up on the org chart. Like, where are they? How do they fit into this puzzle? But I think, for me, I don't know if I think you and I may have talked about this, like just in passing, is I really take managing seriously. Like, I've had great managers in my career. I truly, truly believe that it's a huge part of success, not necessarily for me, but for the people on my group, and like to move the brand forward, right? Like, if my team likes and works for me and works hard, we're only going to do better things. If people aren't like in a good headspace and don't want to work for me, then that's not helping. So I do actually take it really, really seriously. I will say, like, on Zoom, it's a lot different than being in office and being able to have that touch point with someone close to you and saying, hey, like, let's grab a room, let's go grab coffee. But I do think it's caring, making time. Like, everybody needs time. And especially now in this post-COVID world, is making time for people, hearing what their problems are. And listen, I can't solve it all, but that is also my responsibility as being in a senior management role, is trying to figure out how I can solve that and make it a little bit better for them. That's always been important. But it's because I've had good leaders that have shown that to me, and also giving people credit, right? Like, allowing people, if they've worked on a project, you present this. Like, I don't need to be the one presenting it, right? You send the email. It also like builds confidence, and also builds them to eventually be here, right? Be the VP of brand strategy, like, keep moving up. And I think you really have to do that. Like, not enough, we're moving so fast, and enough people take the time to like stop and say, okay, what are your blockers? How can I help you today get past this? Like, take a day off, like, take a summer Friday, like, I see it, you need it. It's just little things like that I have found. And once again, I'm not the best in the world at this, but I've found that helps, right? It helps keep the lines of communication open, not having as much turnover, being able to show support, and then that funnels down, right? So like, they're allowed to show their team, hey, Jen is really supporting us here. Don't worry, guys, like, we're going to get this, and this. So for me, that's kind of how I've looked at it. But yeah, doing this remotely is totally different. We're not in the office as much as we all used to be. So it's trying to find that time. And a lot of people on my team aren't even here in New York. So that makes it a little bit more difficult. But I think we've all kind of had to change our leadership style. I mean, I'm sure you would agree, right? Doing this way, that you can't always have, grab someone and how was your weekend? Like, we don't always have time for that anymore, because we're in you look at your calendar in the morning and you're like, okay, when am I going to do work? So it's, it's like, you have to kind of like switch your brain to like, okay, this is you have a meeting with someone, your time for them is important, right? They're trying to meet with you so you have to devote your time to them and not be doing 100 things at once, which is so hard now too.
Yeah.
But I do think it is really important just for success, and just makes, like I said, people want to work harder for people that they see, take this seriously. And that's what I've been trying to do, at least in my time here, is like, we're moving so fast all the time. And sometimes we just have to you have to feel like you have a teammate. And that's what I'm trying to do for my team.
Yeah. So you touched on so many important things. And I think it's about that, like, make the time, but also in that time, be real, be present. And I love that you talked about those things. And, there's an element of it also that you talked about where it's like, people aren't robots, and like, in a way you have to be able to move quickly and get all the things done and, and work remotely and everything. But again, it's like each one of those moments, it matters so much. And then to your point, they actually want to work. You're actually looking out for them. Like, how can they be more successful? How can then we all be successful? How can we lead forward?
You want to retain talent, right? You don't want people just leaving and, oh, I can go make more money here. It's like, okay, you can make more money maybe somewhere, but you want them to want to work for you and see the bigger vision of the company and the bigger vision. And that's kind of my responsibility at my level, is to like take what I see from executives and kind of filter that down. So people say, you know what, I want to be here. I want to work for Jen. I want to show her that I can do this. And listen, my job is also to be a champion for them. And I know I touched upon that a little bit, just saying like letting them present and whatever it might be, but like, it is like, you need to let other people get that, time to shine and allow them in large meetings to speak and, be in meetings if they're not, and and champion them to other people. Like, oh, this person did a great job, and here's why. And you're going to see this come out this week, and because if you don't, then it's a really slippery slope. And you like I said, retaining talent is really important right now.
Yeah, totally. It's also, as you're talking about it, you kind of get the feeling that you're also creating, you are creating, but you have already created within your team a culture, right? And that's probably a culture of the company that you work for. So again, as you're talking about, you're being a brand steward internally as well as externally. And again, it's like, that's what people want to be a part of. That's like,
yeah, it's really true. That's the one thing I have to say about FanDuel. I mean, it's a phenomenal place to work. Our leadership is amazing. Really straightforward, really approachable, available. But the one thing is, like, we have all these company principles, and we have a few, but one of them is one team. And like, we really do live by that. Like, we are one team, and we all were working towards certain goals. And it's not just like one-offs here and there. And you hear it, like, you'll be in meetings and people constantly bring up our principles. And any other company I've been in, I've never really heard that. And people constantly go back to our company principles, which I think is fantastic, because I think we really all know, like, we all have a common goal, and we know, like, you're on board, okay, let's go. And it's just like, that's so refreshing, to be honest, especially in a industry and at a company that's just constantly evolving and changing all the time, right? Because we have to, and it's just such an industry that's like hasn't, it's only been around for a couple of years. That is one thing too that I would say is, like, that's also helps me as a leader, right? As I know what our company principles are, but in general, like, we are all there, right? We have common goals, and like, we're all going towards them. And I think I will say it's just the culture at FanDuel is amazing.
That's awesome. I love that. And again, it's like, that is the thing.
I'm really lucky, right? Like, not everyone has it. It's true. I mean, we've all ups and downs. We've been at different companies throughout our careers, and this is a great one.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm glad that you said that, because I'm going to shift gears a bit. One thing, I don't think I've ever told you this, but one thing that I've admired about you is the way that you have, from a outside perspective, it looks like you've taken chances in your career. You've done different things. You've taken different roles. You've pushed yourself to enter new competitive spaces, all of this, and you didn't get stuck on a rock at one place for a long time like I did. Like, no, and I don't mean that, like, if you work for one place for a long time, you're stuck, but the reality is that some of us do get stuck, and I think that I'm guilty of that, in my career at a place. And so, it's one thing I've really just admired about you. And I think that sometimes what happens, I think, is when you do get stuck in a place, like I actually ended up having almost like these identity crises when I would move to a different experience. But I think that because I would stay for a while and then attach myself to that. And I think that, it's been awesome to watch you take different steps in your career and create success and find new things. And so I would just love to hear your thoughts about that. I think these people who are listening are of all different stages of their career. And I think, everybody has to make the decision that's best for them. But anything that you can share about, like, how you navigated that journey
That's well, thank you for that. That's really kind. Because there's definitely times where I don't feel as if I'm doing the right thing. Inherently I'm an athlete, and I do think, like, deep down, I'm not a complacent person. And this is like throughout everything in my life. So I would probably have to say that's probably where a lot of it comes from, is when I get to a point where I feel like I'm not learning anymore. I need that next challenge. And what is that next challenge? And, really understanding what's out there, what's available. Right. To your point, like, what's moving. So yeah, I started on the print side of the business at Sports Illustrated, and amazing experience there. And then I moved to ESPN to learn the TV side of the business, right? Like, to your point, I've kind of had this, just kind of like ebbs and flows of where I'm going. But even just to get into sports betting. So gosh, how many years ago at this point? I'm probably almost 8 or so. I joined, so after kind of like being on the media side of the business, right? I even left sports for a little bit, went back to sports, always on the marketing side, because I do have always known I love marketing. So I've been really lucky with that. But then kind of moved, at one point I went to Monumental Sports Entertainment, which is essentially kind of like a Madison Square Garden of DC, and moved down to DC. And the reason I went there was to launch their OTT platform. So it was the first regional OTT sports platform. So for me, it was like, wow, I've been in TV, I've been in print, I've been in online, digital, like I need what's next. And what's next was streaming, right? And I had this amazing opportunity to work for Zach Leonsis, as you know, the Leonsis family owning Monumental Sports and all the teams there. And the vision they had was fans are not coming to games like they used to, right? People are, it's a different generation. There's not as much value there. People want to watch and consume sports in other ways. And how are we going to do that? Knowing that they own the teams, but then what's next? So I joined, I don't know, I think I was employee number 3 or so, and built out that marketing team, built out that brand of Monumental Sports Network, and, you know, really dove into that side of the business, which I had never been on. And it's fascinating. And with rights and, you know, what are streaming, and even like looking at pricing, constantly changing our pricing and A/B testing, and like just a really different model. And then working with the teams of like, you're talking to the most engaged fan base. If you have a season ticket, how are we going to get you to convert? So did that. But a lot of the conversations we would have was, we knew that sports betting would become legal at some point. And how are you going to bring that to fans in the way that you're allowed? And a lot of the conversation was, well, with this platform streaming service, we can hopefully integrate lines or integrate something within it, because it's not, you know, at the game or whatnot. And that's kind of where I started to get my feet wet with sports betting. And that's where I was like, okay, my next role, that's where I wanted to be, because I can kind of see the evolution here and how it, like we started off the call talking about the engagement and like adding to the fan experience and watching sports. So that's kind of how I've done it. And then like I said, I moved over to PointsBet to run marketing for them. And then obviously have moved over to FanDuel a year ago to do this for that. So it's the way I've kind of looked at everything is like, okay, how am I going to keep learning? Just because that's just my personality. I don't want to do something the same forever. It just like doesn't drive me on a daily basis. And listen, like I do like to work, and I want to love what I'm doing and like feel as if I'm learning, and I still am. And I will tell you, the reason I came to FanDuel was to work for my current boss, because he has a lot more experience on the brand side than I do. And I just said this to him probably 2 weeks ago, like, I am here because I want to learn from you, right? And I'm continuing to learn from you. And then there's things that I know, right, that I'm able to talk to him about, whatever. But I know I'm not done learning, is I guess what I'm trying to say, Peter, is that I'm not done learning. So like, and if I want to keep doing this, like I have to be open to keep learning. And that's what I want, because I know that there's so much out there. And the way everything has evolved. I mean, I remember when I want to say when I was at ESPN and we were talking about something with someone, and everyone's like, okay, like if your next job, like you got to go to cable, you got to stay in cable, because cable is supported by affiliates and you will always have a job. And like, that's where the money is. And that's when I had gone over to NBC. And it's just funny, you think about that now in 2022 of like, how many people have cut the cord, right? Like, but that many years ago, nobody would have thought that like that was actually a thing. So, you know what I mean? Like it's, if I would have just put my head down and be like, I'm only working here for the rest of my career, like, I don't know if I'd still be there, right? I would have had a job. So I just have been really trying to think about how I can keep learning in the business, but add value, right? So like all of my experience still adds value in different ways, but I'm learning a ton still from the people there. And that's kind of how I've been, as I've made my moves. That's why, like back to your original question, like that's why I've made my moves, is just because I get to a point where I'm like, okay, have I been here, you know, long enough where I feel like I've gotten everything I can get? What should I be looking for next? How can I help? Like also, what can I bring to someone? Because I'm valuable too, right? I need to be able to walk into an organization and say, I can bring you X, Y, and Z, but I still want to learn A, B, and C. So that's kind of how I've done a lot of my conversations. You know, I don't like and FanDuel knows this, like I didn't just jump into working there. Like we had a lot of conversations. I wanted to make sure it was the right place. And it really is. I mean, I'm so, like I said, I'm so incredibly lucky, but that was because we've had a lot of open conversations too.
Yeah, yeah. And I love it as you told that story, it was literally this evolution, and I talk about that so much. Like in our careers, it is this constant push to continue to evolve self, continue to evolve the people around you and the brands that you're doing and the work that you're doing. And an element of that curiosity as a leader, I think is so special to have and important to have, because the more you keep learning, the more you keep evolving and pushing yourself, and you bring that value, to those around you. So I love that it's so funny. All of our things are dinging at the same time. I swear I'm keeping us on track, Jen. No, but I appreciate you sharing all of that. And especially as folks are listening, there's such key takeaways. And I think, again, everybody's going to make their own decision about how long they want to stay in one place and that kind of thing. And I think that even if someone does end up staying at one place for a while, you can still apply a lot of these principles that you're sharing about.
You have to know what you want to get out of each job. I've said this to other people. Like I've had people come to me and be like, oh, I'm not even that busy. Like, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, but you're in a great role, right? Maybe that's what this job is for. Maybe this job is the job that's going to give you a work-life balance. So maybe now you're not super busy. So at 5 o'clock, you can go for a run. You can go see friends. Like you can join a book club. Like everything in our life is for a reason, because guess what? That next job you take, you could be working crazy hours where you're so incredibly busy, right? So like I've always say to people, think about each job as like that different stage and what can you get out of it, right? And what, you're going to obviously want to work as hard as you can, but if it's something where, right, you're done at 5, well, great. Like take advantage of that, because that's not always going to be what it is, or it's like for me now, I work with wonderful people. Like I enjoy talking to the people that I work with, and we make time for that, and like, oh, let's do a team dinner. Like we don't get to see, okay, let's do this. Like, it's not everyone has that. There's certain places where you're like, oh, I can't stand my boss, or I really don't like this. Okay, well, think about what that job is giving you in other ways that you can think of it positively, right? Because we know as soon as you go down the negative track, like it's for everyone. Like we've all been there. It's not healthy. And listen, being behind a computer all day, it makes it that much harder, right? Because you're not surrounded by people that can bring you up. So I do think this is even like tougher time, but yeah, to your point, like you just have to also think about where your job is and what it's doing, right? Like I moved my life to Washington, D.C. with my husband. That if I didn't do that, I wouldn't be where I am today, right? So like I just think about like those career moves are because of like you have to look back like, oh wow, this is where it got me. You don't think about it in the moment, but at some point, like it does get you someplace, like trusting that process. Like it's so hard. I mean, so many times I probably called you being like, I don't trust the process. What's going on? But like when you do like stand and look back, you're like, oh, I see. I get it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's like not that much happens by coincidence. And so to your point, there's a reason for some things. And so sometimes we have to ask ourselves, what am I going to learn from this? How could this make me better? But it is still that ever present, like continual push. It's like the foot is always a little bit on the gas. Like how can I continue to evolve and get to the next thing and learn in the process? So, and part of that also, I think that I've learned, just by being friends with you over time is how much you've dedicated yourself to creating real relationships and building a really authentic network that, I mean, it's like, you just don't say you know people. You really know people. You're really well connected, and those people know you. And so I think I would love for you to share as people are listening to this is like, are there any tips that you have or anything that just about building that network? And is it something that you figured out at one point? You were like, oh gosh, I really need to focus on this, or was it just something that was inherent in who you are? You just were doing it already.
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, thank you. That's a really nice compliment. I don't think I did. I think it's inherent, to be honest. I think I like people. So like in general, I like being around people. It's part of my personality. That's where I kind of like get my energy. But it's making time, right? It's like kind of what I said, but from like a leadership perspective, like how many times people say, oh, do you know this person? Can you introduce me? And like, people think like, oh, I don't want to. It's like, yeah, of course I will. If they're a friend and I want to, like, people have done that for me, right? And like, I'm so grateful for it that of course I will do it for other people, because there aren't that many people that will do that. I have found that, to be honest. But I do care. Like, for me, when someone reaches out to me out of the blue and it's like, how are you? How's your daughter? How's this? You're like, oh, thank you. Right. Like, there's more to me than just work. And there's more to other people than just work. And I do think it's, once again, there's no formula, because I don't think I actually think about it like that. I just think about it as like, oh, I haven't heard from them in a while. Let me shoot them a quick note. Or, oh, they reached out. Yeah, I got to get back to them. Or like, hey guys, it's NFL season. I am slammed. I don't have time, but I do want to see you. So like, let's plan for this date, right? It's like, I don't know. I like to hold myself to that. I hold other people to it. Like, I don't, like to like break plans or things. So, I just think it's important to actually care about people. Like, your life isn't just work, and you have to remember that. And like I was saying, I really love working with the people that I do. I know a lot about their lives outside of work. And I think that's why we all work well together, because we appreciate that. When I travel and it's like, I have a lot of things at home that are going on and I just walked away from, my mind sometimes is there. And I have people that turn to me and like, doing a great job. Like, I get it. And I'm like, people have really made time for me, and people have been there for me at good times and bad. And I really, really value that. And I try to do that for others, because it is people's personal time, right? And like, to your point, like, you also want to work with people you like. You want to be able to help friends. Like, I have friends who are like, hey, I need to hire someone. What do you think? I'm like, okay, let me think about that. Like, I do really want to help them, because we've all been there, right? So I think, like I said, there's no formula. That's just how I kind of operate. But that was very nice. Thanks for saying that.
No, it is. It's really true. And I think that, it's definitely always stood out to me. And, because at times I can be pretty introverted sometimes, or like I'll have my own moments of imposter syndrome where I'm like, well, why would I reach out to that person? Because why would that person want to talk to me? And then I have to just like remind myself, okay, stand in your strength, make the connection. And to your point about like bringing value and, like being present for other people. And it really is this give and take of those relationships. And you may, like, when I met you that day at that pitch meeting, who knew that we would continue, we would create a relationship and add value to each other and, over the years. And so I think, that's really important to remember that, that it's truly called relationship, right? It's not a transactional thing. And I think the more that we can think about that as we do meet people and build a network, I just think that the better it can be.
Yeah, no, it's really true. And like you said, like, it's like really caring. Like, to your point, we first met, like, and I remember we had coffee soon after. I was like, I enjoyed this coffee. And like, I learned, and like, you probably don't even remember this, but at one point you told me about a company that I should talk to. And I ended up going and working for them. And I was like, if I didn't know her, that would have never happened. Right. Like, it's just, it's funny how like all of it kind of works, right? Like, still some of my close friends are from my first job, which is like crazy, right? Or people I've met, and there's certain, there's certain people you call at certain points, right? Like, hey, I'm having a bad day. I need to talk to this person. They're going to make me feel better. Or they're going to say, get your shit together. And like, like, let's go. Right. Like, there's different people. And like, as you get older and mature, this, like, who they are,
Yeah, that's so true. Who to go to in those moments, but you also learn who not to go to in those moments. And that can sometimes be the biggest thing.
That's a big learning. Yeah.
I know. Okay. So I'm being sensitive to your time here. So just a couple more things before we wrap it up. And you've mentioned the NFL a couple times, and I think there's something big that you've got going on or soon to go on with the NFL. So can you give us any sort of a peek into what that is?
Sure. Yeah. So, NFL is big time for us, as you know. But we just had our NFL campaign that we worked really hard on, hit, I guess, last week and last night, another spot. So we basically have, make every moment more is what we do. Right. But we looked this year at like, let's lower that barrier of entry for people, make them realize that sports betting is not scary and And why not, right? So if you think about throughout your day, all your little life choices are actually like a series of bets. So like, how long should I put my toast in the toaster oven for? Like, will I burn it? Will I not burn it? Like, if you think about that, that's like a bet, right? You're taking with
That's
yourself.
me
Like,
every day at lunch.
right. Or like, how long, like, is my clothes going to fit today? Like, or am I going to shrink something? Like there's all these things throughout your life. Like if you really step back and think like, wow, I'm already doing this. So that's kind of what our campaign is. Our every moment is a bet, and showing fans that you're kind of doing this in your life already. Why not do it with America's #1 sportsbook for the NFL season? So we rolled out this campaign. I'm so proud of the work. It's so fun. And I think like you'll see, we have, I think, 7 or 8 spots rolling out across everything. And that's like here. And that's also our DFS and college football. And on top of that, we have our entire campaign for NFL. So you'll see stuff rolling out throughout the season. So it's been really busy leading up to this, but so fun, and like, different offers for different times of the year. And I think it'll really resonate with people. And that's the point, right? Is like building this brand of trust that we are. And it's all about like, oh my gosh, they're making me feel as if like I'm doing, like, let's do this, and like, this is who I want to do it with, and showcasing our product, showing people how easy it is. So I think lots of research went into it. But this is like my first big NFL campaign with FanDuel, and I'm really excited about it. I hope everyone likes it. I think we will. It's fun. And I think, like I said, you'll start to see it everywhere eventually, but, it's been a lot of hard work. My team is amazing. We worked at Wyden and Kennedy as well on this, those guys are great. I think it just makes NFL season even more fun when you're like, oh, I've kind of like contributed to this part of it.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's awesome. Congratulations.
Thanks.
I can't wait to check it out.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, all right. So last thing, I like to wrap up each one of these episodes with, we talk about a lot of things in all the episodes. So I would love to hear from you if there's, for people who are listening today, if there are 1 or 2 things that you want to make sure that people take away from this episode, what would that be? What would those things be?
Oof. Oh, that's a good question. Do what you love and what you're good at, right? Like I said, I studied marketing in college. I've always loved marketing. I don't know if I'm always that good at it, but I do love it. And I found that like when that's what I want to do. That's what I want to keep doing. So I think it's so many people are always like, how do I get into sports? I want to work at sports. It's like, well, it's not about working in sports. It's what do you want to do? And then you can do it there. Right. So I think it's really thinking about making sure what's really going to drive you daily to be able to do that wherever it is, and you can do that anywhere. And make time for yourself and for people. I guess it kind of going back to like that networking, like I make time for myself every day because I need that in order to get through the day, but also in that time is sometimes just calling people or talking, you know what I'm saying? Like it's a different world we're in. And I know everyone's talking about that, so I'm not trying to be cliche, but it is a different world, and we have to make extra efforts that we probably never had to do years ago. Think about like how you would go to the office and then go grab lunch or walk and see someone on a commute. Like we don't do that like we used to. And yes, we have more time at home and with family, but it doesn't matter. Like you have your extended family, which are, your friends. So I think it's really making time for you and for them because we all need it, and like it does make you happier in your day. Like you're a better worker, a better manager, right? Like a better wife or a husband or, there's all these things, a partner. I think that's really important. And sometimes we lose it, especially when we're working as hard as we are, that we're like, oh, I didn't even get to eat lunch today, or I didn't get to, no, like you got to make your time, or whatever it might be for you. But that would be, I'm sure people have heard that or said that in the past, but it is true. Like it just makes you it makes you better at your job too, right? Like when you're able to focus on something because you've already kind of like given yourself that energy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Totally. And you live it. And I mean, you specifically, you walk that talk, and it's awesome to see, and it's awesome to be, and I'm grateful to have been a part of your journey so far. And I can't wait to see you continue to shine and lead those around you the way you are. So thank you so much for everything. Thank you for coming on and sharing all you did, folks. Hope you loved it. Check out FanDuel, check out their NFL campaign. And I'll let you go and have an awesome day.